several fiberglass epoxy projects. Got a couple of little holes to fill. The big project is redesigning and rebuilding the Dodger, putting a floor in the anchor locker. But I thought, I'm getting my tools lined up and all my equipment. Thought I might review with you some of the things that I use, and I'm sure there's plenty of other tools that you could use. It depends on the project. But the key is, start off with a good grade of epoxy. Now I've tried several different brands. The one that I go with now, and the one that I've liked in the past, came back to it, Moss Epoxy. And maybe you haven't heard of them, but you know, a lot of the professional boat yards, that's all they use. Now Moss is also really big in the tabletop epoxy. And I'm going to do a couple of those projects too. That's a different resin and hardener altogether. But here's the basic things that I'm going to use. Now when you use the Moss Epoxy, one of the things great about that is the measured pumps. This ensures that you have a good mixture. So it's one pump of resin, one pump of the hardener. Now I go with the slow hardener just because I'm a slow worker. It takes me a little bit more time. But there's a fast hardener that you can use too if you're more proficient with this. So you can use the mixing cups, and I'm sure you've seen them, the ones that have the little numbers on it, and you line that up and you mix it. This takes all the guesswork out of it. And then I just use plastic cups that I have left over from around the house. This one in particular is really nice because it's kind of got a rounded edge to it, so it's easier to get everything mixed when you're mixing. This one got a few little, but for small projects it works out great. So quality epoxy, mixing cups. Another item that you might need to use is a fairing compound or a filler, which Moss has. I use acetone for my cleanup. And of course, when you're dealing with epoxy, you can never have enough disposable gloves. Get this out of the way. And inexpensive disposable brushes. Now I buy these on one of the online stores for like 50 cents a piece. You get a dozen or 2 dozen of them at a time. Another thing to help spread everything around, these rubber or plastic spreaders. You can see I've used the heck out of this one. And then your stir stick, and it's important, you know, when you're mixing epoxy that you get it thoroughly mixed. One of the things I like about this mixer is, you know, if you forget to clean it, this stuff will peel off, the epoxy. And then too, this end works out really nice, like for like an edge where you want to round that out. You can use this on that. Another thing I like to use for the smaller holes is a syringe. Put a little thickened epoxy in this. Makes it a lot easier to fill the hole. And the same with the tape. If you're going to be working around something that you don't want this epoxy to get on, use this type of plastic tape. The epoxy is not going to stick to it. And even smaller holes, I'll put this over the hole, poke a hole in it, or take the drill bit, drill that out because I want to clean the hole out anyway. Then when I put the epoxy on, smooth it out, let it dry. I don't have little bits all over the other area. I just have that hole. This tape comes off, easy peasy. A good roller is also important, and that's what I like about this bigger container is I can put some acetone in it, just enough to cover the roller, and I can get the roller nice and clean. These are not real cheap. I mean, you know, I try to get 4 or 5 years out of one of these. And then of course, when you're working with epoxy and you need to sand, the breather mask, very important. Now, if I'm working down in the bilge area in a confined space, rather than just wear this, I'll put a full respirator on. Just makes it a little bit safer. Oh yeah, when I was talking about safety equipment like here, I realized looking around, I don't see my safety goggles. So apparently I did something to mess them up. I need to get a new pair of safety goggles, because when you're sanding, you really want to use that kind of stuff to protect you. Other tools that I use, again depending on the project, I like the small Dremel here, and this bit here for small holes, rather than have the hole just as a hole, I like to flare it kind of like a funnel, and I use this to achieve that. And if it's bigger, oops, if it's bigger, I'll use the drill bit one to make that so that it's flared out. It'll just hold a little bit better. And an orbital sander, when you're prepping an area or cleaning up bigger areas, vital. And that leads me to, you're going to use a lot of different sandpapers. I mean, I've got a 80 grit, a 60 grit, 80, all the way to 180, 220. I think 220 might be the best. Oh wait, no, I got one that's even better. Yeah, 220 is about the smallest I go. If I need to go under that, I'll go to like a 330 or even a emery cloth type of thing that'll clean it up. And again, depending on the project you're working on, if it's a really big project, instead of just a sander, you may need to go with some kind of a grinder. But if you use a grinder, be really careful. Some of those things can bite hard, and you're going to wind up with more work than taking a little bit more time with a 60 or 80 grit sandpaper on this. Well, as you can see, there's a lot of different things you could use. You know, it all depends on the project that you're working on, how much you have to do, so just kind of take it from there. Till next time, guys, happy and safe boating to you, your family, and friends.